We can't hear you.
Can't hear you. Can't hear you. Please.
There we go.
Yes.
There we go. There we go.
Go ahead.
Well, it was nice that I'm Ian Williams, and it was nice to be introduced as looking good and healthy because I suppose now is the time to break the news that I've died twice in the last 6 months. And before I was in the ICU. So I've had, there are cats wandering Manhattan, wondering what that Ian Williams is doing with all of their spare lives. So it's very gratifying to be told I'm healthy. And the secret, of course, has been rum. Not quite true, but let's say it hasn't been. It hasn't been the effect that people would have expected. Rum was almost an accident. I've been writing books about. I've also written the global history of tequila. I've written books about George Bush's military career. A short book.
Okay. Yeah. Run down the list. Run down the list if you don't mind.
I wrote the UN for Beginners. I wrote Untold, an inside the history of the UN. I've written what else was there? God, so many. I wrote a book on George Orwell, a collection of essays, and it's his 120th anniversary at the moment. So George Orwell is a particular study of mine, not least because there are so many people now who are using George Orwell in 1984 as a textbook rather than a warning. It's a bit disturbing. So I write about all of these things. I was formerly president of the UN Correspondence Association and was conscripted into being president of the Foreign Press Association. I didn't want it. It was thrust upon me. And the secret of my success at the moment is nobody dares challenge me because I'll walk away immediately. The first person who says no gets the job. I don't have time.
What kind of responsibilities are those? What do you have to do? I mean, foreign press, the presses from around the world, you'll have to engage with them and discuss subject matter content, I suppose, right?
Yes, well, we've tried to provide information for them. And we talk to the State Department and other people about visas. And we try to get people together to represent collective interests. The Foreign Press Association is actually, I think it's the oldest press organization in New York. It's over 100 years old now. It was, wow. It was 1918 it was founded. So, I'm at the end of a long line of distinguished predecessors. And it was lumbered to me just when I was out of hospital after a massive aneurysm. So it was the last thing I wanted. But I agreed to sort of be the placeholder. And I have enjoyed it because we have regular press briefings, often with authors and experts, to get the foreign press interested in different aspects of international and US life. Alton mentioned before, I'll be interviewing shortly the author from the Martin Luther King Institute about the FBI and J. Edgar Hoover's role in the evangelicals, where basically he subcontracted the spiritual welfare of the FBI to the Society of Jesuits at one point.
Didn't know that.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, there are several things in the book which are revelatory. I'm still reading it. He had no black agents whatsoever until Harry Truman came and insisted he had to have some. So he appointed his chauffeur and his gardener as special agents to fill the quota. And then, of course, as soon as they finished, he gave him the trowel and sent him back to the garden. It was a thoroughly racist operation. I've written about the FBI in the past because I've always maintained that the FBI's expertise in solving plots is based on the fact that they start half the plots with paid informants and then arrest the people they've paid to start them. So
we actually have a FBI. What we'll do is we'll bring you on another show with him, and we'll do a FBI discussion. But today we want to hear about the British expat, and we want to hear about the rum. Yes,
the rum. Well, I'm actually a proponent of British food. I make my own haggis, for example. First, catch your sheep. No, I was living up in the Catskills, and we made haggis for several years for Ben's suppers. And it's a long and gruesome project, but I actually had people, vegetarians, coming back for second helpings.
I bet.
And haggis is pretty gruesome. I mean, it's basically it's a sheep ground up and stuffed inside itself, its own stomach. I also make a very mean pork pie.
Oh,
and steak and kidney pie. So I do British cuisine in a big way. We miss these things here. We miss them.
Well, now we have a slightly British audience on, and some representatives from UK as well. So the food culture is a big deal, and important areas and discussions, points that people want to hear about. But we also are looking at points that merge the UK culture to the US culture. Now, I don't know, a lot of people don't know this, but some of the foods that we I don't know if we still include them in our diet in America, but there were some UK foods that are still popular there. And that we, I don't know, are there any US foods that we use in the UK? And so we're talking about what, the 1890s, is 17 early culture development. It would be it would be very interesting to hear the foods that we still eat, but I don't know, because I mean during the Lincoln administration they changed the pork pie. That's still a popular food, but I mean there are some foods that we shifted, from to, and they're still in America. Maybe not, but I don't know. I mean, when you think about foods and how long foods stay in our culture and last, and we consume them,
Yeah, but I think there's been a lot of American influence on British foods, because they just said that the English people are drinking more coffee than tea, and that was the latest statistics I heard, which was quite shocking. But anyway, Ian,
that is quite shocking. But you've got to remember the coffee is not American. Coffee
No, I
houses
know.
started in London.
Yeah.
The coffee houses were transported.
Oh.
And, by the way, the Boston Tea Party was not about tea. It's one of the great myths. What the colonists threw
you
over.
told me this before. When you first told me this, I said, "Wow!"
Well,
but go ahead. Tell the story. Tell the story.
Tell the story.
What the colonists threw overboard in Boston Harbor was not highly taxed tea. It was duty-free tea that the British had allowed the East India Company to dump, basically, in Boston. But this meant all of the founding fathers were smugglers. And they had warehouses full of tea, which they paid extra for, a premium, to smuggle past the British ships. So all of this tea was suddenly on the verge of becoming a drug on the market. Of course, they wanted to destroy the competition, and they went on board the East India ships and threw the tea overboard to ensure the market for what they've been smuggling. It's not quite the story of virtue and intrepid colonial enterprise that is the official version, but it's true. It was the same with the rum. I mean, the big cause of the American Revolution was molasses and taxes, because the British wanted to tax the molasses and the sugar that was coming into the US, what became the US, because this was a major trade good. And everyone's forgotten that the molasses was brought from the West Indies into the Northeast colonies and then turned into rum and then shipped to West Africa to pay for slaves. So this was not the triumphant, the triumphant victory of freedom and liberty and free trade that everyone was talking about.
Well, it is a story of exports or imports, and the story of taxation and issues of taxation without representation. And so they couldn't.
They didn't want representation.
They
never once asked for representation in the British Parliament.
Right, but the money,
Franklin raised it, and the colonists said, "Shut up, we don't want it."
yeah. Well, but they couldn't have spent that money and given it away if they were taking it and using it to make purchases for the slave trade. If that money was coming in, then and they were spending it, they, I mean, I mean, how are they going to pay for anything with it?
So the British were actually spending 28% of their budget fighting the French, and the main cause of the battle was to keep to get the French out of Canada, where they were threatening the colonies. Samuel Johnson, the man who wrote the biggest English dictionary, he wrote an essay against slavery. Amongst other things, he said, "How is it that the yelps for liberty come strongest from the people who whip slaves and sell Negroes?"
Wow.
And more to the point, he was saying that the solution for the British Crown, this was right at the beginning of the War of Independence, was to call up the French and say, "It's yours, come take it." And he said, the colonists will be banging on our doors within a day, saying, "Please, please, come protect us, come and take us over." But, and he was right.
I've been awfully, impressed with our relationship with France for many, many years. They have played an important and vital role to the culture. I guess maybe that's why when they, the spirit of liberty, they gifted us one while they kept one for themselves. I mean, so we have been, partners in the cultivation for our culture. I don't.
We have a question. Hold on.
There's a question, and so it's amazing, and it still continues. And so, and when you think about the countries that we have such a great relationship with, someone asked it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Hi, Julia.
Julia wants to ask you a question, Ian.
Hello. Hello, everybody. I'm sorry I'm late. But anyway, I don't know if you saw the BBC article this morning, but apparently eel pie was a big thing. The century. Okay. Doesn't that sound disgusting? And
eel pie. Yeah, that
eel. Oh my gosh. We had a boathouse on the Thames at Runnymede when I was small. And we used to have somebody who lived there at the boathouse to sort of protect it and keep it afloat, I think. And he used to fish for eels. Can you imagine? Right out of the Thames. Oh my gosh, and eat them. So
I've had jellied eels in the East End of London. During the Olympics, I led parties of foreign tourists for British cuisine. And I had the first elected Muslim mayor in London, Lutfer Fatah Hamlet.
That's right.
Feeding with jellied eels and whelks.
We like him, don't we?
Foreign correspondents.
What do you think about them? What do you think about London mayor?
My family are from the north of England originally, and the family wealth came from tripe. The lining of a cow's stomach, and they used to serve it boiled with salt and vinegar in newspaper.
Tripe is an acquired taste. I've never. I'll eat it, but not with
around 1800s or 17. Well, how long a legacy?
Never mind, they're still eating it.
Really?
It's
the supermarkets here in New York. You can get
chewy. It's chewy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Jackie.
That's
all right. So it looks like we're doing more of a round table. So let me get everybody involved. Let's see how to do that. Yeah. So Ian, keep talking. Tell us some more stories, and I'll bring more people in.
Eel pie.
Okay. Well, one of the things I really miss here, and I really can't see how America's managed for so long, is fish and chips.
Oh yeah. All right. Well, no, that's still popular.
That's the original. I know, but it's the original convenience food, and the idea that you can go from one end of Manhattan to the other, and there's 1-2 fish and chip shops. It's the original fast food. It's tasty, nutritious.
It's expensive in England, though.
Oh, but you don't have
it's ridiculous. Yes,
it's ridiculous.
Have the Sagar vinegar. The Sagar vinegar. That's what's missing. More and more people now. I've tried it, and I've distinguished the difference. Oh, it's amazing, the difference. Amazing. Now we have regular
vinegar and HP sauce.
That's right.
So what?
malt vinegar and HP sauce.
They have sarsens. Jackie's got sarsens in her shop, so I bought some to take home.
But things are getting bad now because HP sauce is now made in Belgium, I believe it is.
Really?
Yes, they exported it as part of the great European stir-up.
Oh.
I'm not going to blame the Europeans. It was the British manufacturers that said we could make it cheaper in Belgium. So, you know, bad cess to the Brits for allowing them to do it.
Oh.
Because no other country would allow such an iconic national food to be taken abroad and made elsewhere. I mean, you don't get champagne being made in Morocco. The French wouldn't allow it.
And champagne is only made in France. That's true. That's true. You know?
Jackie and I don't get is we live in North Carolina, and now North Carolina has more hogs than they have people. But we can't make a darn good sausage. Fortunately, Jackie gets it imported from a wonderful source at her shop. But why can't Americans make a decent sausage? Why is it so fatty? Why is it just tasteless? I mean, it's just globs of fat.
That's a good question.
Because they don't put rusk in it. The secret of British sausages are bangers is adulteration. They put rusk.
Come on, Ian, give us the truth. I like a good chipolata sausage.
But everything, even the chocolate, everything has extra sugar, extra salt. It's like a whole cup of extra sugar and extra salt and everything. So yeah, the Americans have to back off on that sugar and salt.
Grind it up or something. I don't want to see it. You know what I mean? I don't want to boil it out.
They add more salt.
No, but there are solutions. There are solutions. Now, even an organic pig, you know, that it's not, you don't use fat in, or even though they use a lot, all sausage in America is made with sage. The sage is a great component and, you know, item, but there's a lot of other stuff in it that could be shifted or changed and made healthier. What about a healthier sausage? A healthier sausage.
Oh, now that could spoil them.
Oh,
The whole point of sausages is they're unhealthy.
No. You get a healthier sausage. You know, I mean, that doesn't not taste like sausage.
You haven't had a good sausage. I can tell you have not had a good sausage.
No. See, I make my own.
Go to Jackie's.
I make my own. I make my own. It's a healthy sausage, and it's a lean sausage. It's a good sausage, but it doesn't have the fat and the salt. The fat and the salt. Now, the question is, can you make a good sausage without the fat and the salt in it? Some people would argue that it's the fat that gives it the flavor.
Like a good steak, right?
Yeah. I mean, you know, but see now.
Go on, Jackie, tell us about your sausage.
Tell us about it.
Actually, I mean, they are made here because, as you know, you cannot import meat products. Although I can get Frey Bentos pies, they're all enclosed in tin, but they are made to the British recipe. So there aren't too many places over here that do that. We have to, I look around. So mine come from Florida and from Georgia, but they're made to the British recipe, and they're made with the same texture that we have in England. I think what Julia's trying to say is, especially in North Carolina, the sausage that you can buy, and I live near Nahunta, which is the capital. It's very chunky and it's like gristle in some places. It just doesn't have the same. And the other thing I noticed, which is probably doesn't bother people in the taste of it, but the British sausages, very rarely when you cook them, very rarely do they burst open. But when I buy the American sausage, at least here in North Carolina, they always sort of burst out the end. The sausage burst out the end.
That's the rust bit. The sausages burst open because
it's the flavor. It's the fat and the flavor.
The crispy texture on the skin as well.
Yeah. So, but we order in, and they seem to be popular. We can get chipolatas, we can get Irish bangers, we can get British bangers. There's a few variations that we can get, but not for many locations. So
that's a good question. I'd like to find out from the audience, everybody, what your favorite flavor or what your particular turn on the sausage would be or could be. Is a pool. Tell me, I know there are a couple of brands out there that have significance. The question is, which ones?
Cumberland sausage.
I was going to say that, Ian.
Which one? Cumberland.
I can get Cumberland and Lincolnshire. I can get those two here too.
Okay, now those are British sausages, Cumberland?
Yeah.
It's the spices. It's the flavors inside it. So
and also the texture. It's very. It's got a lot of mouthfeel as well. It's
I've had bangers.
Ground meat.
I had bangers before, and I've also had the bacon. Now, the thing about American bacon that I just love, I like my bacon crispy.
Yeah.
Crispy.
It's the fat. That's the fat.
I know, but it's great.
You take it out of the sausage and you put it into your bacon.
Elton is a grower. He grows tomatoes, and so he does his BLT sandwich.
I grew up. My grandfather was a farmer
from North Carolina.
I love
the hog.
Yeah, I like. I know.
And it's very difficult. It's very difficult to get black puddings in America.
Black puddings.
Yeah,
I love
get those
proper black pudding, berry black puddings, not this stuff they sell in Irish places, which is a long sausage cut into slices.
I don't think I've ever tasted a black pudding. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
And white
they sell it in Barbados still, pudding and sauce.
Really?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's blood pudding.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
What's it made of?
Blood.
Oh boy. Yeah, that's
blood and barley and fat.
That sounds like
now
that.
let's get back to something more
You're
serious.
losing your audience.
That's wonderful.
No, we're not losing our audience. What
So-
we did was we have 16 authors, Julia.
Oh.
And what happens is everybody wants to talk. And so we spaced it out so that everyone gets a chance to make their presentations, because this is just a recording and then we're going to go live with it on Facebook. So
well, we've got a full show.
we got a full show.
And, what we're trying to do
Is space people
is
out.
give
Yeah.
everybody a little something.
Yeah.
And so producing something like this
Takes a lot out of us.
it's like, okay, let's find the generic or the important subject matter.
Okay,
that we need to
let's
explore.
stay back on track.
Okay.
So I'm going to let Ian finish, and then I'll bring Julia. I'll bring you on, and then I'll bring him on. Yeah.
Well, we mentioned about imports. There are some things that they just won't allow to be imported.
Oh, is that right?
Smoked haddock is one. Finnan haddy.
Smoked haddock.
Get here, yes.
That's a fish, right? Seafood.
Yes. Yeah.
Why not? Why not?
Very tasty. The next one is, of course, haggis.
Yeah.
Okay. And then
which they won't allow haggis here that contains lung, and since the major ingredients in Scottish haggis is the lungs, they make it. There are people who make it here, but they use they use lamb, proper lamb, the full thing ground, when it's actually supposed to be the lung grounder. It's fun to make. I mean, I've
so haggis is made from lamb.
It's take the pluck. The pluck is the full part north of the diaphragm on a sheep.
Okay.
So you take the pluck, you boil it with spices, and then you grind it and shove it with oatmeal into the sheep's stomach. And then you boil for 5 hours.
In the sheep's stomach.
Yeah.
Without the sheep.
Wow, without sheep, of course. Yeah, yeah. Well,
Sheep in if you want. It's just a bit difficult to get the legs in the pan.
boy, now that
all right. We have to
that sounds like a flavor. Oh, that sounds like a connoisseur.
all right. We have
What else? Is there anything else from sheep or lamb that has value like that?
Well, Americans don't. America, in fact, they're getting much more used to it now. But Americans, for a long time, considered that they thought lamb was too strong tasting.
Oh, really?
God knows what they'd have done with mutton in the old days.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But
But they
mutton
thought
is
it was
very.
too strong tasting, and they didn't like it. They liked sort of bland pork and.
There's always been this controversy between lamb and beef. Now, beef has always won out in American culture. Now, and even when it came to harvesting lamb versus beef, lamb has a great value and also very healthy.
It's also expensive to produce because you can't artificially feed. They have to eat grass.
Yeah.
So all sheep meat by definition is grass fed. Whereas, as we know, with cattle, they can be fed anything, including other cattle, as we discovered with the BSE. So, lamb's expensive.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's healthy. So, and there's a market for it, an appetite for it. So, but I mean, I'm just asking the question because of the market and what is the next great food. Now when hamburger came on the American scene, hamburger has lasted almost 65 years.
Oh, longer than that. It's hamburger sausage, remember? It was German. Hamburger sausage was what it started out at. And basically it was ground up meat. Remember, sausages were ways of coping with meat that was otherwise unusable.
See,
it's dog ends, all the bits and scraps left over after you finish butchering, and or was almost inedible. So you ground it up and you disguised it with spices, and then you shoved it in a skin and put preservatives in, and it kept for a while.
See, but now this is interesting. What is the next great food? Here we are. What is the next really? Because I mean, we're purged against food that tastes good, that with the right combination of fat, and but also is kind of healthy. It has a healthy component because we have to now merge with health, and that's what I think. Now, if no great big quantity of food is going to be successful if you got to merge between what's healthy, what's the right combination of fat and taste, and and you can eat as much of it as that you want.
You have to get over the yuck factor. I mean, one of the cheapest forms of protein around is jellyfish.
Jellyfish. Oh well, now that's never.
It's actually sold and used. I mean, it's.
I don't see how
commercial fishing of jellyfish is big business.
Yeah.
It's mostly used for animal foods. It's but it's there. It's protein. It's cheap.
Now shrimp is going somewhere. Shrimp has good value, and it has. I mean, but it ain't gonna be like burgers. Now, I don't know. When you talk about jellyfish, what are you gonna do? I mean, you can't get large quantity of jellyfish.
Oh, yes, you can. Okay. They have industrial trawlers loaded up with holes full of jellyfish.
Is that right? And so how do you cook and eat that?
Ask the Chinese. It's in your Chinese menu.
I'm gonna have to interview stop this for a minute because we've got a lot of animal activists and people online.
Still people
but
okay.
If you're watching this on Facebook, join the conversation. Tell us what you think and let us know what's going on.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm gonna stop.